Okay, supervisors, one of the things I want to just say to you is you can be too woke. You can be too woke, right? So I had a situation where someone came to me and they wanted me to help them solve a problem. And the problem was that they overheard some employees having a conversation about what you do with old bacon grease. So growing up, we had a can that you would pour all the old bacon grease in. So we had one for bacon grease. We had another can for like beef hamburger runoff, and that would go in there. I'm not exactly sure what we were supposed to do with that, but we kept it. And I would also imagine it was pretty rancid, but I don't know why we kept it. We kept it because it was always kept. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to do with that, right? So a supervisor heard a couple of employees talking about this, and so the supervisor wanted to interject. Now the supervisor wants to be culturally sensitive, culturally knowledge. He wants to engage in critical thought, and hats off. I love it. I love it. So the supervisor engages the employees in a conversation and says, you might want to not talk about bacon, bacon drippings or whatnot, or bacon grease or whatever. And so the employees are like puzzled. They're like, why? And they're like, well, we have all sorts of people in our workspaces, in our work environments. You want to be sensitive to that kind of stuff. And so this is where it like turns bad. So the employees are like, so you're censoring us. You're telling us that we don't have the constitutional right to talk about bacon juice, right? Or bacon grease. And the supervisor's like, no, I'm not really saying that, but I'm just like, I just want you to be conscious. And I feel for the supervisor because the heart is in the right place, but you can be too woke. What I would suggest is that as we encounter, first of all, let's assume the best of the other person, right? Let's assume the best. Secondly, what I would encourage us to do is to pick our battles. Pick our battles. So, context is everything. So if this context is in a cubicle space, and you can tell oftentimes the intent, or if you don't know the intent or you can't be clear about that, you can measure the impact of certain conversations or certain behaviors and act accordingly, right? And so again, I commend the supervisor for stepping in, but secondly, recognize the context, right? So if this is a side conversation, let me let you in on something. From my years in K-12 education, there were lots of things that I heard that I did not respond to. Lots of stuff that I heard. I took in as information and said, you know what, I'm going to use this later. I'm going to use this to look for other teachable moments, right? And so I would encourage supervisors to do the same thing. So make mention of things. Thirdly, I have a rule of thumb that I operate from in my life, and that's the rule that the first time I hear something, right? So I don't necessarily respond to instances. So if I hear an instance of a thing or in an occurrence, one occurrence happens, I may not respond to that one thing, but I do respond to patterns of behavior, right? So if I see this instance happening over and over and over and over again, and your tolerance as a supervisor is your tolerance, right? So for me, I use the rule of three. If I see a behavior 3 times, then I'm going to address that behavior. If I see it once, and then I don't see it again, or there are large spaces between the behaviors, I may not necessarily address it, but I address patterns of behavior. And so as a supervisor, if there's a pattern of behavior where people are talking about these things, or you recognize that there's consistent hurt that people are experiencing because of these conversations, by all means, interject. But pick your battles, because you can be too woke. Now, does that mean that conversations around diversity and inclusion don't need to happen? By no means am I saying that they don't need to happen. I'm just suggesting that you look at the context. You have some purpose driven conversations, that you have goal directed interventions that cause things to become better rather than worse. So pick your battles, because you can't be too woke.